I wanted to show you guys a little clip that popped up on my feed the other day. So Sean Hannity is still talking over on radio like it's 1998. Um, and even his like Fox News show, it's so stuck in 1998.
It really
like
does feel very dated.
It's
a
so
real throwback.
Just standard partisan claptrap. Like there's nothing interesting ever that comes out of there. You could predict everything he says before he says it.
He's never made an interesting point in his entire life.
Never.
It's just all pure Republican hackery.
My favorite Sean Hannity moment, or I should say moments, is when Media Matters clipped together. It was a compilation of through the years his position on the NSA spying, the Patriot Act. During the Bush years, he framed it as like, if you're against this, you're with the terrorists. This is about safety. This is about security. This is about making sure your grandma doesn't get blown up by Al-Qaeda, you asshole. You have to support this. And then as soon as Obama got in there, he did this long monologue about how this is against our Fourth Amendment protection from unreasonable assassins against...
Classic.
Totally flipped, and there was no acknowledgement of like, this used to be my position, now this is my position. He's just doing standard partisan hackery. But anyway, one other area where he's been consistently wrong is taxes and the economy and the wealthy. So everything in that field he's been horrific on. But now I think he may have gone lower than even Sean Hannity has ever gone before on these issues. Check this out.
What is the, real quick, one sentence each, what do you recommend people do now? I'm saying save money wherever you can, and if you can bring in extra money, find a way. What do you say, Steve?
I say you continue to work hard. If you don't have a job, better get one while they're out there. And I don't think I'd sell the stock market right now because the prices have fallen already so much.
David?
Wake up every day and be as productive as you can be because that's what God made you to be. Be productive, and it solves a lot of financial problems, too.
It does. Maybe instead of working a 40-hour week, join the rest of us. Work 70, 80, 90 hours. And I know that people don't like to hear that advice, but that's what I do. Anyway, thank you both. David Bonson, Steve Moore. I've done that my whole life. Just keep working. Anyway, when I was a contractor, I remember I would work through the night if I could. You know, if people would let me stay, or if I was working in a commercial facility, I'd stay as long as they let me.
First of all, let's just say this guy hasn't done real work in fucking decades.
He acts like he works in a fucking coal mine. You're a well-paid TV host, like pampered TV host.
And we're in a position to make this point too, because what we do is very similar to what he does.
Yes.
He has multiple shows, we have multiple shows.
Yes.
Right? Like we just do it in new media, he does it in old media.
Yes.
Granted, he gets paid out the wazoo for what he does,
Oh,
right?
and has a million more staffers than we do.
Of course,
They're writing his shit for him.
Absolutely. So let's just put that out there. For anybody who listens to that and says, come on, man, you don't even do real work, Sean. I'm here to tell you, you're correct. And also the thing is, we love what we do, so it's only like semi-work. You know what I mean? He's in the same boat. He loves what he does. He loves,
seeing his
puckering his lips up and putting them on Trump's asshole every other day. Like, that's what he does, right? So, but did you notice the number of hours he gave there?
Yeah.
What'd he say?
70, 80, 90.
You and I did the math before the show. 90 hours a week is like 12 or 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's insane. You will work yourself into an early grave if you do that.
Yeah.
I don't even think that's debatable. I think you will run yourself ragged and just be done.
Well, and I mean, this has always been the fundamental hypocrisy, too, of this whole, like, this view, which has been standard issue Republican Party crap for decades and decades now, which is you're also supposed to be the party that cares about, like, families and raising your kids. And, okay, when you're working 7 days a week, 12 or 13 fucking hours a day, who's raising your kids then? It's certainly not you.
That is such a great point. And it's true because they do all the time. They yelp about family values. But the fact of the matter is, if you truly are pro-family, some no-brainer positions are like paid vacation time by law, like every other developed country has, paid maternity leave, paid paternity leave. Something like a 4-day work week. We should be having a serious conversation about it this time.
It just seems like, I mean, that whole discussion, it feels to me like such an anachronism too. I don't know. Do you think it lands? Like, do you think that people...
Fuck no.
I mean, And I really feel like, especially post-pandemic, when people were screwed over and it was so clear it was not their fault. Like, they didn't have anything to do with the worldwide spread of a pandemic. That there was just a real shift in attitudes with regards to work and workers. So that, I mean, now you see these labor movements across the country, which are broadly supported in a nonpartisan, like bipartisan, across the spectrum kind of a way. You see now with inflation, like, that's not the fault of an ordinary worker. So these aren't things you can bootstrap your way out of.
That's right. Yeah. And the other point that I can't get out of my mind, and it's something I think about often, is so the minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour.
Yeah.
Last time it was raised was all the way back in 2009, and it was actually raised under Bush, if I remember correctly. So it's worth now, there was some tweet the other day, I forget who said it, but it's more than 20% less than it was at the time. So the real wages for somebody who makes minimum wage, it's going down, 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 down.
Yeah.
You can't afford like a one-bedroom apartment in any of the states in the country on minimum wage. So what drives me crazy is this notion of like, you can't yell at somebody to work harder. If they're working a full-time job and they're just not getting by, the fact of the matter is, if you work a full-time job, that should be enough to get by. Now, you can have you could argue about, well, what's the definition of get by? What are the lines, et cetera? But I think we can all agree we're certainly not at that point right now where your work is valued enough if you put in the time. And there's a guy I knew in high school, one of the hardest working guys I ever met. His name's Kevin, and he worked like 2 or 3 jobs all the time. Every time I saw him, he was working. And the guy lived like at the poverty line or just below the poverty line, and he had some shitty apartment where he was renting, and it was, as cheap as he could get. And I think of that guy all the time because we've been lied about this notion of meritocracy. Like, the harder you work, the further you go. But in my experience, some of the people who work the hardest are lagging behind the most. Yeah. So I don't really see a correlation there. The point I like to get across people is that your market value is not the same as your human value. And what politics, what we should attempt to do politically is like sort of even those things out a bit, where, everybody in a country as developed as we are, as modern as we are, as industrial as we are, we can definitely make it a little bit more fair to actually get to the point where it would be maybe a reasonable meritocracy, where like the floor is an acceptable place where you start from.
Yes.
It's like if you have a 100-yard dash, you take some kid in Harlem and Mitt Romney's kids. The kid in Harlem starting at the negative 50-yard line, and Mitt Romney's kids at the 89-yard line for a 100-yard dash. I mean, it's not, there's no justice to it. There's no fairness to it. I'm not going full, Viva la Revolution communism here, but all I'm saying is, if you look at the tremendous income and wealth inequality, and your takeaway from that is like, work harder, work fucking 90 hours a week or something, you're just a fucking dumbass. That is a dumb point to make.
There is absolutely no reason why every person in this country couldn't have housing, food, healthcare, education. I mean, that's just a choice, right?
Okay, Che Guevara.
That we decide not to provide that.
Fidel over here.
Which many other developed nations have decided that their citizens are, as human beings, worthy of. Hannity and all of his, Stephen Moore, I think, was one of the people there, all of the ghouls that are trading their...
I forgot about that guy.
Yeah, that are trading their, like, ideas of what they would tell people. All of their ideas are just focused on the individual. And that whole way of thinking about politics and the economy and how to approach your life, that's all designed to make you feel like if you are struggling, it's your fault.
Correct. Yeah,
right?
That's a great point.
And that's actually a big, in America, obstacle to change, because a lot of people really imbibe this and they feel a great sense of shame if they're not able to make it, if they're not able to join the middle class. And so rather than thinking of, okay, what are the collective solutions? What should we be demanding from our government for the common good? They buy into this like, oh, I just got to work harder and it's all on me. I think much better advice came from Amazon labor union leader Christian Smalls, who said, listen, we're not leaving our jobs anymore. We're organizing. In other words, we're not just in it, accept that these jobs are crappy and this is our hours and this is the pay and it is what it is. No. Rather than try to bootstrap our way individually out of this, we're going to join collectively, use our power to organize and achieve a better deal for all of us. And ultimately, that's the only answer, because no individual person can, the odds that are being thrown, people are slipping into a recession, the prices that are going up and up and up. Even before we really, started talking about inflation, healthcare, education, and housing have been skyrocketing for decades. Somehow that wasn't considered inflation, even though, I mean, these are the core items that allow people to be able to live and have any sort of a bedrock, basic, decent life.
You made a really great point there that I want to underscore for people. They try to frame it so that if you're not doing well, it is a personal moral failing. But the obvious retort to that is like, well, what if you are doing everything right and you're still not making it? And the fact of the matter is, I just pulled this number up. This is from 2018 Bureau of Labor Statistics. About 38.1 million people, or 11.8% of the U.S. population, lived below the official poverty level in 2018. I Googled how many working poor in America. That's the number that came up. I don't know if that's actually working poor or just under the official poverty line. Here, I got 34 million. It's from 2019. 34 million for working poor, or 10.5% of the population. Okay. Working poor, okay. So let's just say it's about that. And by the way, I don't even think that number's right. I think that because the official poverty line is, I think, lower than what it should be. I think it's kind of not reasonable as to where they draw the line.
Yeah.
But like, what do you say to those people? What do you say to those people? It's personal moral failing? That doesn't hold water. It just doesn't make any sense.
Not to mention all the assholes who have done everything wrong and are horrible human beings and are succeeding in spite of it. There's that other end of the spectrum as well.
Yeah, that's another great point. So anyway, it's very obviously not a meritocracy. That doesn't mean that discipline and hard work are bad. It just means let's be honest about what happens in this country, and to just yell at people to work 90 hours a week.
The problem in this country is not that people are lazy. That's not the issue. The issue is that we have made it, I mean, we have a rigged economy that benefits a very few people and makes it almost impossible for the vast majority of Americans to get ahead.
Hear, hear. All right, what you just saw is a little teaser clip from Krystal, Kyle, and friends. We had a phenomenal conversation with David Dayen, who is a massive policy expert, a wonk. He knows all the ins and outs of the executive orders Biden can do and what he can't do, and he gives us the details on the reconciliation bill that's up for a vote shortly, and the CHIPS Act, which just passed the House. So this is a super substantive episode, and if you guys are interested in that, you pay $5 a month, you get the video of the interview and every Krystal, Kyle, and Friends interview, and you get it a day early. And the other thing is, if you want to listen for free, it's on virtually every single podcasting app, but you should still sign up on Substack, because then as soon as the audio podcast drops, you can get it delivered directly to your email. So either pay $5 a month and get the video of Krystal, Kyle, and Friends and get it Krystal, Kyle, and Friends and get it a day early, or just sign up for free on Substack and then you get it a day later. So everybody check it out. We love you. Peace.